Voter suppression has been an issue we have focused on this network for the last several years. We understand how important voting is for you when it comes to electing who you want, whether it's the president, Congress, or on the state and local level as well. And getting people to register has been a crucial issue in states like Georgia, where hundreds of thousands of African Americans are not registered, and they could have a major impact on who gets elected in that particular state. With the new Georgia project, what they have done is they've gone out and they've registered thousands of people. But Secretary of State in Georgia, Brian Kemp, refuses to certify 40,000 of those registrations for some reason. He has been sued. That took place on Friday by the NAACP Legal Defense and Education Fund, as well as the Lawyers Committee for Civil Rights. Joining us right now is Representative Stacey Abrams. She's a Georgia State Representative, and of course, she's also with the new Georgia project. Representative Abrams, she joins us by the phone. This is amazing because y'all have been out there working with other affiliate groups as well in a nonpartisan way, registering people. But the Secretary of State is sitting there unwilling to say why he will not certify 40,000 of these folks.
Correct. We have been deeply disturbed because some of these voters applied to vote in March and April. And so they've already been disenfranchised because they missed the May primary. But given how close the election is, we think it's unconscionable that 40,000 or more voters have yet to be placed on the rolls.
Of these 40,000, according to the numbers you got put together, more than 60% of them are between the ages of 18 and 35. So we're talking about a lot of young folks, many of them who likely are first-time voters.
Absolutely. And that's our deepest fear, that part of the goal of the New Georgia Project is to not only get voters registered for this election, but to train voters to become regular voters, to make sure that this 800,000 unregistered African-American, Latino, and Asian voters in Georgia, that they not only engage for this election, but they stay engaged, because as demographics change, populations may shift, but the power will not shift if we don't start engaging these voters. And it begins with this young group of voters, because they are the most likely voters over the longevity of the state to be the ones making the decisions. And if their first experience with voter registration is to be suppressed and to have their registrations ignored, why would they believe that their votes won't also be ignored?
I want to pull up the map right now showing folks early voting in critical states, and we've seen this battle back and forth. So, Shelley, please pull the graphic up. Of course, you see early voting in Maryland taking place. I guess we have some issues when it comes to the graphic, but we have Maryland beginning on October 23rd, North Carolina, October 23rd. Florida started October 5th. Louisiana is October 21st. Arkansas is October 20th. Ohio started October 6th. And Texas begins October 20th. I want to bring in my panel, Lauren Victoria Burke, managing editor of Politic365.com. We also have Stacey Johnson with the D.C. Black Republican Council, and George Jefferson Nuri, director and founder of In the Public Eye Communications. Lauren, this is an issue that, again, we have seen a lot of this since 2010. We've seen voter ID, changing of early voting locations, also changing of early voting times. In fact, in Georgia, there was an effort to actually shrink early voting, if I'm correct, Representative Abrams, down to 6 days, but that was beat back, correct?
Correct.
So again, so you see these examples where African Americans and other in these southern states, they're targeting black folks, young folks, and a recent report shows that the Kansas voter suppression effort has had an impact on decreasing black voter turnout and young voters turning out.
Exactly right. And of course, what we see in Texas and in Georgia, these are states that are supposed to really be reflecting the minority population of the voter rolls, but particularly Georgia. People have been saying for years that Georgia at some point has to reflect and effectively go from being purple to being blue. This is kind of the moment. I suspect that Secretary of State Kemp knows that this is the moment where they're probably going to turn blue. You know, Georgia has 5 African-American women running statewide. And I'd be interested to know from Ms. Abrams, is she getting any help in her fight from Michelle Nunn or Jason Carter or anybody running statewide? Or is she alone, or what is this?
Stacey?
No, so what's happening right now, this is a nonpartisan effort, and we've been very intentional about maintaining it as nonpartisan. We do not want these voters to be denied because people believe that this is some partisan effort. The reality is voter registration is nonpartisan. Now, marketing to those voters is intentionally partisan, and I believe certainly that the Democratic Party will go after those voters, that Michelle and Jason will do their best. They have been both very supportive of the idea of voter registration, but they have not been involved in this effort because this is a nonpartisan effort.
Okay.
Joy, what really jumps out to me is that, and again, people say, well, I love these people who say they don't see any voter suppression. When you have the Secretary of State who refuses to even give a reason. Here we are, less than 3 days from the election, and he still won't give a reason as to why he won't certify these 40,000 ballots.
Because there is no reason. There is no reason. There is no reason under the law. There is no moral reason why he's suppressing this, except for the supremacy of a group of people who've been running Georgia politics since the beginning of time. And there actually is this real threat, not just in Georgia, but around the country. Even the Supreme Court had to bat down a voter ID measure in Wisconsin. There is a movement afoot that, as you were saying, that people understand that this is the pivotal moment. Right. This is the pivotal moment that Dr. King was talking about, that John Lewis has been talking about, the Voting Rights Act was talking about. This is the pivotal election. This one has, the last two have proven we come out in droves when we care.
Stacey, you with the D.C. Black Republicans Council. Republicans talk about the right to vote. Here you have a Republican Secretary of State in Georgia, red state, who refuses to give a reason as to why these ballots are not certified.
Well, he should give a reason as to why the ballots are not certified. He can't not give a reason. I think that's ridiculous.
No, but he is, because in fact, they had to file a lawsuit on Friday to compel him to do so.
Yes, they did, and that's wrong. He should give a reason. He should have an investigation, and he should find out and make sure that the voters, especially these new voters, you don't want them to be disenfranchised. You don't want them to feel as though their vote doesn't count, because it does. People have lost their lives for us to be able to vote regardless of race, regardless of party affiliation. So in order to keep this election process clean, he should do whatever he has to do to make sure that appearance occurs in the state of Georgia.
Representative Abrams, last comment, are we going to see, and what's the next step? Clearly there's a lawsuit, but time is of the essence.
Correct, and that's why we filed the lawsuit. The question is, we're asking a court to compel Secretary Kemp in the 5 counties where we have the heaviest numbers of registrations. We want them to be compelled to process them, to notify the applicants as to the status of their applications, and to make certain that they're enfranchised. What can be the most help is reaching out to the Secretary of State's office, having people of both political persuasions and independents really raise their voices and demand that these new voters be added to the rolls, because, as you pointed out, there are no do-overs in elections. If they're not on the rolls by November 4th, their voices don't count, but more importantly, they probably won't come back again.
All right, then, Representative Stacey Abrams, we certainly appreciate it. Thank you so very much for the New Georgia Vote Project. Thanks a lot.
Thank you.
Folks, when we come back, we'll talk about what happened in Ferguson, Missouri this weekend.